Yesterday I was moving a really heavy log. It was too big to lift up completely, so I was grabbing one end and just lifting it and flipping it over and just kept flipping it until I was able to move it out of the way where I needed it to be. And at one point I had the log standing up on end and the ground underneath me caved in. So it looked like some kind of groundhog tunnel or something was up underneath there, and just the combined weight of me and the log caused it to cave in. So my right leg remained up on solid ground, while my left leg dropped down about knee deep into the hole, and that caused my right knee to buckle. Now, when you fall into a hole, your first instinct is to get out of it. So I climbed out and started getting away from the danger area. And I noticed as I was walking away that I was limping, and I can tell I had hurt myself. So I sat down and was just kind of testing it and gave it a few minutes. And I was like, okay, I don't think I broke anything or anything super serious. Stood up, walked around, and it felt not too bad. So I was nearing the end of my project. I had about a half an hour left, so I was like, I can finish up what I need done here. So I had done that, and then the rest of the evening did what I was doing, and it wasn't too bad. I mean, my knee was sore, but I mean, homesteading, you're always sore. It's always something or other you're fighting off some pain with. And then this morning I woke up and I could barely walk. So I think sleeping, just getting off of it, it just caused it to lock up, tighten, everything tightened up or whatever. And so for most of today, I've just been finding little things I can do, low impact stuff, keep me busy. But I'm not feeling too bad. I don't think it's anything that I need to go see a doctor for or anything. Just a few days of light duty should help. Nothing overly exerting. But I got lucky. That was really a minor thing. A little busted up for a couple days and I'll be better. But it could always be a lot worse. I remember at my old job, they always had those posters on the wall and those, little sayings they always throw at you of every accident is preventable. No, BS. I mean, how could I have prevented the ground collapsing underneath me? I mean, you can't predict stuff like this happening. Sometimes bad stuff just simply happens. And you got to prepare for when that does happen. All the time out here, I always keep a package of Quick Clot near me, which for those who don't know, it's something you open up the package and you put on and it will stop bleeding. Um, it's not perfect, but if it's something that stops some pretty profuse bleeding so you can get yourself to a hospital and get closed up, it can be life-saving. Uh, I don't like that the stuff's kind of a little bit pricey and it does expire. So it's like every few years you got to replenish your supply of them and that. But it's irreplaceable. If you need it, you need it. Same thing. I don't care for technology and cell phones. I think life was better before cell phones existed, but since we have them, wherever I'm at on the property doing something, I keep my phone in my pocket on me. Because if I'm off on some other portion of the property and I have some accident and I need to call 911 and my phone's back somewhere in the cabin, it doesn't do me a whole lot of good at that point. So I make sure to keep it on me just in case. Um, I was lucky because there was a minor little fall. I was been using chainsaws. I mean, you can have a really, really bad accident with a chainsaw. And it brought me to thinking, well, how are you going to handle different situations if there was no medical care? I do prepare, ask myself, how would I do things nowadays while we have 911, while we have operating medical facilities? Yeah, because that's the most likely scenario you're going to end up with in an emergency. But what if those services are not there for you? What are you going to do about it? A lot of people say, well, we're not going to ever have something like that. That seems highly unlikely. I don't think that's the case. I mean, imagine something like we see there's all kinds of geopolitical issues all over the world. Let's say Israel drops a nuclear weapon on Damascus, which is something that they've been threatening to do. You know, that's not even happening in your country. But yet, do you really think that with how connected we all are with the internet, that everybody in the world isn't going to hear about it really quickly? And when they do, you think people aren't going to be scared as all hell? You think people aren't going to panic? I mean, I imagine a lot of you saw something like that. You're going to say, yeah, I think I'm going to call off work today and stay home just in case. Well, it's going to be the same way with medical personnel. You might feel entitled to the services and the personnel that your local hospital provides for you, but you got to keep in mind that those doctors and nurses, they're just people. And they're just people that just going to a job. Something scares them like that, they're not going to go to work either. I think that would happen. All services, police, same thing. They're going to stay home and be with their family just in case. Fire services. Do you think if something like that were to happen, that the owner of a grocery store isn't going to say, you know what, I'm going to close my doors and lock them right now, knowing damn well that a horde of people is about to show up at his store and ravage the place in a completely disorderly fashion? Everything would shut down instantly. And even if that were to only shut down for a day or two before things return back to normal, what if you happen to need immediate medical care during that 1 or 2 days? What if you call 911 and nobody answers the phone? You go to the hospital and the doors are locked because there's no staff working. Those things can happen. Um, I know I used to work at a nuclear power plant, and they are required by law to retain a certain number of security personnel. And I imagine same thing with the operations crew. If they do not have enough people show up to work to keep the place safely running, they're shutting down those reactors. I imagine at all other power plants of different types too, it's going to be the same way. If they cannot safely keep running the power plants, they're going to shut it down and you're going to have power go out. It would be just like that. That's why, when I see today, so many people will see some event on the news or on social media and they'll ask, is this the big one? Is this the thing, the first domino to fall? No, if you've got to ask, is this the big one? Then it is not the big one. Because when the big one does happen, you're not going to know about it. There's going to be no news. There's going to be no social media. So just a lot of that stuff, you can just tune it out. It's just kind of noise. Uh, but you got to think about it. If something serious really happened, everything's shutting down. And how are you going to handle that? How would I handle a serious injury out here if I went to use my phone and there's no signal? What are you going to do about that? You know, I was lucky. It was a minor thing, but major things can happen, and it can happen to you as well. Don't just assume those services are always going to be available. If systems started collapsing like that, all you would have available would be the people around you and whatever skill set, tool set, and supplies that they have right there on hand. So, how are you going to handle something like that? If it's not something you currently think about, maybe it's time that you should.